Welcome, true crime enthusiasts, to a tale that will transport you across oceans to the ancient, sun-baked lands of Peru, where the desert whispers secrets so old they predate the written word. This is the story of the whispering sands of Arequipa, where the sands not only move with the wind but with the will of something far older and far more malevolent, a narrative woven from the threads of myth, madness, and the very earth itself. Prepare to delve into a mystery where the natural and supernatural dance in a macabre ballet, where each grain of sand might hold a fragment of an ancient soul or the echo of a long-forgotten curse. In the heart of Peru, not far from the vibrant city of Arequipa, lies a stretch of desert known for its dark, almost otherworldly beauty and the eerie sounds that emanate from its dunes. This area, once part of a thriving pre-Incan civilization, is now a desolate expanse where the wind plays strange tunes, and the sands seem to shift in defiance of natural laws. The landscape here is punctuated by the ruins of ancient temples and forgotten cities, their stones whispering of times when humans walked this land under the gaze of different gods, when the line between the material and the spiritual was as thin as the veil of sand that now covers them. The legends of the Whispering Sands began with the Yura people, an ancient tribe who believed that the sands were a sacred ground, a place where the gods spoke through the earth itself. They held annual ceremonies to appease Del Ser de la Arena, a deity they believed controlled the sands, could bring prosperity or doom with a mere whisper. However, their reverence turned to fear when unexplained phenomena started to occur. Travelers reported hearing voices in the wind, not just the whistle of sand but distinct, human-like whispers that seemed to speak in languages long forgotten. These whispers were said to vary from lullabies to lamentations, from threats to promises, always just at the edge of comprehension, compelling those who heard them to listen closer, to understand, often at their peril. One chilling tale recounts the disappearance of a group of archaeologists in the 1940s. They were investigating a newly discovered set of ruins, rumored to be a temple dedicated to Del Ser de la Arena, or the being of the sand. This temple was said to be a place where sacrifices were made to ensure the sand's silence or to call upon their power. Their last message was a radio transmission filled with static, through which one could hear desperate pleas for help over the sound of a windstorm. When a rescue team arrived, they found no trace of the archaeologists, but the sand around the ruins had formed into patterns resembling human faces, screaming in silence. The rescue team reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the sand itself was watching, judging, with some claiming they felt the sand move under their feet, trying to pull them into the earth. The sands of Arequipa are said to house the whisperers, spirits, or entities trapped within the grains, longing for contact or perhaps revenge. These entities are believed to manipulate the dunes, creating paths that lead to nowhere or into sudden sandstorms where the wind speaks directly into one's mind, driving them to insanity. The theory is that these beings feed on human emotion, particularly fear and curiosity, using the desert as their canvas to paint nightmares. Local folklore suggests these spirits are the souls of those sacrificed to the sands or perhaps the guardians of the secrets buried beneath. In the 1980s, a local guide, Pedro Martinez, became obsessed with the legends. He began to guide tourists into the desert, claiming he could interpret the whispers. His tours were initially celebrated for their uniqueness until one group was led into a sandstorm from which only Pedro emerged, his mind shattered. He spoke of seeing shadows moving beneath the sand, of hearing promises and threats from the wind, of feeling the sand under his skin. His final days were spent sketching endless patterns of dunes and faces, his sanity lost to the voices he could no longer silence. His notebooks were filled with scribbles in an indecipherable script, which some scholars believe to be an attempt to communicate with or understand the whisperers. He claimed to have seen a vision where the sands parted to reveal a city of gold and shadow, where the living and the dead danced together, a place where the whispers were psalms of creation and destruction. Modern investigations have brought a mix of scientists, paranormal researchers, and thrill seekers to Arequipa. Dr. Lucia Fernandez, a geophysicist with a passion for the paranormal, conducted studies using seismic sensors to map the movement of the sands. Her data showed patterns of movement that defied natural explanations, suggesting something intelligent was at work. Her team also recorded audio where, amidst the wind, there were clear voices speaking in ancient dialects, discussing sacrifices and the wrath of forgotten gods. They captured moments where the sand seemed to move in reverse, against the wind, forming shapes that looked like human figures or symbols from pre-Incan cultures. One particularly disturbing recording featured a voice that seemed to mimic the heartbeat of the listeners, growing faster as if in excitement or fear, before fading into the wind. However, the most terrifying aspect of the whispering sands is their psychological impact. Those who venture too deep or spend too long listening to the wind often return with tales of being called by name, of seeing loved ones in the shifting sands, beckoning them deeper into the desert. Some have spoken of a feeling of being buried alive, only to wake with no memory of the event, their minds filled with images of sand dunes that moved like waves under a moonlit sky. Others describe a sensation of the sand entering their minds, whispering their deepest secrets or fears, turning their own psyche against them. There are stories of individuals who, after visiting the sands, became obsessed with the sounds they heard, unable to live without the constant murmur of the desert wind, some even building sand replicas in their homes, trying to recapture the connection or perhaps to appease the entities they felt they had encountered. One of the most documented cases involved a psychologist, Dr. Hugo Navarro, who decided to study the psychological effects of the whispers. He set up an experiment where he spent nights in the desert, recording his experiences. His diaries showed a progression from scientific observation to a descent into paranoia and obsession. He described hearing his deceased wife's voice among the whispers, guiding him to an endless dance beneath the sands. His final entry was a scrawl of madness, claiming he had found the entrance to the world of the whispers, where time and space were meaningless, where he could be with his wife again. His body was never found, but his equipment continued to record sounds of laughter and weeping long after his disappearance. As we leave the spectral dunes of Arequipa behind, remember, in some places, the past isn't buried under sand, it lives within it, whispering through the ages, waiting for the right moment to speak to the living. The whispering sands are a reminder that not all mysteries are solved by science, that some are bound by time, myth, and the human psyche's capacity for terror. They remind us that in the vast emptiness of the desert, we might not be as alone as we think, and that some stories are meant to remain whispered, not shouted from the rooftops. Each grain of sand might be a fragment of history, a piece of a soul, or a whisper from beyond, all waiting to be heard by those brave or foolish enough to listen. Thank you for exploring this eerie narrative with us. Until next time, listen for the whispers in the wind, and sleep well, if you can.